Are we excited for tomorrow? I'm not sure if you're that excited. How excited are we? Come on, are you excited for tomorrow? There we go, that's what I love to hear. Well, first and foremost, I'm Wes Rogerson, and I'm joined here by my colleague.
Hi, I'm Martin Bayr.
Who's been one of PMI's biggest advocates over the years. And today we're just here to not only get you ready for tomorrow and understand what the challenges in front of us are, but to make sure we answer as many questions as we can to make sure we're all 100% on there. But first and foremost, let me just say that you are coming to DC at a critical time. Right now is the beginning of the budgeting process, where we decide what we do fund and what we don't fund and at what levels. And as we know over the years in this administration, PMI, the Global Fund, critical organizations, their budgets aren't guaranteed. And advocates like yourselves who go out of their way to learn about these issues, share that knowledge with their officials, and give them an avenue to champion that makes all the difference. And to kind of just demonstrate where we are in the budgeting process and how you guys make an impact, we have a short video that we're going to queue up for you right now. Fantastic. Now, it's about the question that we're all trying to ask right now, is what are we fighting for?
Absolutely.
What are we doing?
Absolutely. So we're advocating for basically two essential line items in the budget. First of all, let me actually step back and say thanks for coming. You guys are hugely important to this fight. I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times throughout all these presentations, but it really does make a difference. Can you raise your hand if you've ever done this before? Yeah, so we've got a majority, a solid majority of folks that have done this before. So I'm going to walk through essentially our funding numbers and what we're requesting. If you look at the FY21 NBN request line in the chart here, we've got $1.56 billion for the Global Fund. Global Fund, huge champion in the fight for malaria. They fund about 65% of global malaria work around the world. The United States itself actually does about 50% overall when you add in the amount that we provide to the Global Fund as well as PMI, which PMI is essentially our bilateral program. The Global Fund is how we work together with other countries to essentially fight malaria around the world. PMI is when we do it on our own, direct from United States to whichever country that we're working in. So 1.56 billion, why is that important? We had a 3-year replenishment conference. Basically, all these donors got together from around the world and said, all right, we need to put together some funding for the Global Fund. And they had a target amount about 14 billion overall. The United States is providing 4.68 billion overall in this 3-year replenishment cycle. They do these every 3 years. So the nice part is that they have essentially a clear set of funding for the next 3 years provided by the United States government, as long as advocates like you keep championing those numbers. That's hugely important and very straightforward, very easy to understand. PMI is a little bit more complicated. Their numbers sort of change from year to year. This year, we're advocating for $824.3 million. If you look at the FY20 House and Senate appropriations, basically 2 boxes back, that's what we got last year. That's $770 million. So we're asking for, if you can do the math, it's $54.3 million above last year, which is a sizable increase. We got $15 million extra last year from the $755 million, if you look at the far left block there. That was about a 2% increase. This year, we're asking for about a 7% increase. The interesting thing is the $15 million that was provided last year allows the PMI to buy more effective bed nets. And we're increasing that number because we want them to buy more effective bed nets. One of the major issues that we're running into when it comes to fighting malaria is resistance. So mosquitoes are basically getting smart to the insecticides that we have, and they're not as effective in terms of the fight against the mosquito or killing the mosquito or keeping the mosquito at bay. So we're developing new technology, and that new technology is a couple of new nets that we have. One of them is a boosted net, so it has an additional ingredient. And then there's these new, even newer nets that are a little bit more expensive, and they are dually treated. So I like to say they're blocking and tackling if you're into football. So they handle both sides of the equation, which is hugely helpful. Because of the insecticide resistance, the old nets are starting to basically become ineffective in certain areas. So they're having to essentially roll out these new nets, and they're more expensive, not surprising. But the good news is that $15 million that Congress and the administration provided last year allowed PMI to do something called a price volume guarantee, which essentially means that they were able to go to a manufacturer and say, look, we've got this amount of money. we need you to reduce the price, but we'll buy, X amount of nets from you. So it's actually had a greater impact, and it's one thing that you can stress in your meetings is to say the 15 million you provided last year actually is having a greater impact than we originally suspected because PMI was able to negotiate this price volume guarantee. The 824.3 million or the 54.3 million above what we asked for last year also includes 44 million new nets. So 18 million will be essentially the gold standard, the dually treated net, and then about 16 million of them will be PBO nets is what we call them, but they're essentially a bed net with an active boosted ingredient in them as well. We're also advocating for some additional funding in that 54.3 million for children and pregnant women. Essentially, PMI was looking at some of the countries that they were operating in, and they did this pilot program along with the Gates Foundation and some other folks in Zambia, and they took infection rates from basically, they went from 50% down to 5% in a short amount of time. And basically what they figured out is that if they did better case management, targeting children and pregnant women, they could have a much greater impact. And so that as part of that 54.3 million, they'd be looking at 6 new countries to expand into, I think it's something like 27 additional districts to fight the infection there, and basically targeting women and pregnant women and children. Which, as you know, children is like the number one. It's like 57% of children. 57% of the amount of people that are dying from malaria are children. So that's obviously it would be a huge impact. So those 44 million nets plus these 6 additional countries or 6 additional working in 6 countries that they would have additional districts would have a great impact on the fight against malaria. What else? So when I talked about essentially the price volume guarantee, the nets were originally about $2.60 more expensive. With the price volume guarantee, we brought it down to $1.35 per net. So that's hugely helpful as well. Beyond that, I think that really covers it. Again, thank you so much for your work on this. If you have questions, obviously happy to answer it on the appropriations process and what we're asking for. One thing, actually, can we just practice the numbers? So can you say 824.3 million for me? Can you do it again? A little bit louder.
Really own it, you know?
And 1.56 billion for the Global Fund?
1.56 billion.
And how many bed nets were there? Excellent.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Well, Martin, I think you're really getting to the next step on this one, which is like what to expect and how to prepare for it, right? Well, we've been on meetings on the Hill, and many of you guys have also joined us on the Hill previously. And first and foremost, these are friendly meetings. Staffers are excited to see you. They're excited to see people from their district, their constituents. And all that said, some of them will even be familiar with us. But do expect different levels of understanding, not only of malaria as an issue, but also of our organization and what we do and what you guys do. So take the time to definitely highlight that and really share why this mission's important to you, what's like going on back home, and how they can support our mission. Meetings themselves can range anywhere from 15 minutes in and out to all the way to 30 minutes, where we'll be tugging you out to make sure we make your next meeting. But that said, make sure that we all work together, that nobody gets lost when we're navigating the Hill. It can sometimes be a bit of a madhouse, but you will be hustling. Sometimes you'll have very aggressive parts of your schedule where you'll have a meeting, and other times you'll be able to breathe and maybe even have lunch. Yeah. But that's it, how to prepare. There's no surefire way to make sure that you're going to be amazing except for working with each other, by making sure you guys collaborate as a team and you have a good idea not only of your talking points and our asks, which Martin has done a great job highlighting, but also how you're going to work together. And each meeting is going to be a little bit different. Constituents obviously take the lead with their representative, and some of you guys have the pleasure of meeting with those representatives, which is going to be great. But take a second to do a little research beforehand. Check out what committees they're on. Check out what votes they had most recently. We have notes on whether they've supported things like the Global Fund 6 replenishment by signing on to the resolution in the House and Senate regarding those, as well as if they support some of our asks like the Walter Reed resolution. Look at things that they have supported or have not, and then make sure that we stick keep them challenged on that record. Make sure that we keep them in our good graces if we can, or get them there if we can. But of course, each meeting has to have some leaders. They have to have champions, and champions amongst champions, I suppose. Every meeting, you need to at least have one person who represents their org, is there to highlight it at a high level or maybe get down in nitty-gritty, nothing but nets. Who are we? What do we do? How do we try to help, right? You got to have somebody who provides the facts. Malaria, why is it so important that we combat this? How does it make a difference? How many people are impacted globally? Why are we fighting this fight? Somebody who shares the story, somebody who tells the tale of why they became a champion. Why are you here today? Why did you fly all the way out, risking coronavirus in the airport, just so you can be here and sharing this mission, this ask with them? And of course, somebody who connects the dots. Somebody who not only puts these asks that we have together, these stories that we're sharing, this organization that we're repping, and make sure that it's a clear, concise picture through and through. Everybody feel good about that? Fantastic. So we do have some do's and don'ts.
We do have some do's and don'ts.
Absolutely. First and foremost, it never hurts to be early. If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. It's always better to be as early as possible because that way, you're already ahead of the schedule. Working together as a team, critical. This can't be a one-man show. You have a room full of constituents. We want to make sure everybody gets their voice heard. Work together. If you know that Martin, for example, if we've been in 4 meetings and you've told that great story about your travel abroad and how you've experienced and seen these types of these constituencies firsthand, well...
Are you going to team me up?
No, absolutely, whether you like it or not. I may have to hear that story 5 times, but it's going to be good. Yeah. And then also make sure that your ask is clear. We have leave behind documents with all the nitty-gritty details. Now, you looked over it a second ago. And those are going to be the super detailed things, but make sure at the end that they know that we are looking for these funding numbers for PMI and the Global Fund, and that it's incredibly important that they get there.
It is really important to make that ask clear, is to make sure that you've connected directly with them, that they really understand what you're asking for. Because that makes a difference. One of the things that I was watching the video, and it talks about the conference process and the budget process and that sort of thing. But really where it starts is here. You essentially going into a meeting, chatting with them and saying, this is important to me. And so that member will turn around and may or may not write a letter into the Appropriations Committee saying, we need to fund malaria. And so that's why you guys are basically the spear, the tip of the spear, essentially in this fight. So yeah, make that clear because the more of those get in, the bigger chance that we have of reaching those additional funding. Yeah.
So I'll absolutely say this. If you close your eyes and think about what a bad meeting looks like, I'm sure you have an idea. A lot of don'ts are very obvious, You don't need to yell. We don't need to bring in partisanship. We're here to work collaboratively. They are your representatives. They represent you. Their job depends on your support. So their staff themselves, they're going to be great. They're going to treat you well. On top of it, hopefully they listen, and that's your mission. But there are some don'ts, though. The first thing, don't be intimidated. For anybody who's here for the first time, a conversation with a staffer, a member of Congress will be as easy as just talking to our fellow champions sitting at the table around us. They are oftentimes, especially staff, a little on the younger side, but they know their stuff and they will sometimes challenge you. So be ready and work together as a team and share those facts. But don't share answers that aren't true. If you don't know something, there's nothing wrong with that. I get caught up all the time, and I have to follow up with them. And the good thing is, A, I get them the right facts, but B, it helps foster a relationship, a second introduction to what we do via email or phone call or what have you. So don't feel like you need to know everything, but do feel like you need to share everything.
It's always hard to get out of a lie, too.
Oh, God, yeah. And that said, don't forget to share the leave behind. That has all of our facts, all of our figures, all the information they need, so that when we follow up with them, they'll already have it right at hand. And plus, on top of it, there's a nice little gift there, too, that helps them remember us and also thanks them for their time. So that stuff is important as well.
Sure.
Cool. Any other don'ts I missed?
No, I don't think so.
You guys are great, so this shouldn't be a big problem. Yeah. But the question is, of course, how do we get there? And just like Carnegie Hall, the only way to get there is practice, practice, and practice. And to help you do that, not only do you have our champions across the stage, across the seats over here, but we also have our fantastic UNF staffers who are going to be your hill leads tomorrow morning and throughout the day. Yeah. Now, That said, before I announce them one by one, state by state, and I'm looking at all of you guys, excited, I do want everybody to give Martin a huge round of applause. He's a big help.
Thank you. Oh, I guess we gotta do that, right?
And you know, before I forget though, one small note on don'ts, which I just messed up right there.
That's right. Me too.
As you can imagine right now, the Hill is very rightfully concerned and taking appropriate measures to protect themselves from the coronavirus and other things. So we're big fans now of the Corona elbow, maybe even a little foot tap. Depends on how you want to go about it. A polite bow or a hello wave. These are all super acceptable greetings. The staffers will appreciate it. You may appreciate it. But it's just a good way to make sure that you're keeping hygiene and health at the top of our list. And of course, as a global health advocacy organization, it kind of seems necessary, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. Good to go. No handshakes.
Any questions at all?
Please.
All
No
straightforward.
Oh,
we got
do
one.
it at one.
So this is maybe a question in naivety. First time doing this. Oh, and actually a two-part question. First, Wes, I don't know what coffee you're drinking, but I need some of it. Maybe that's more of a request. Second, like we're essentially going in there, we're advocating, we're asking for money, right? We're asking for money.
Yep.
And that money's coming from a finite pool, essentially, I'm assuming. In order for whoever we are speaking with to make the decision to give money to what we're advocating for, something has to give. Do we anticipate getting into those types of discussions at all? And if so, how would you recommend handling that?
The Appropriations Committee has to make some choices for sure. And there is a finite sum of money. I don't recommend getting into that conversation. That's really for the Appropriations Committee to decide. We just essentially push our message, try to get them to act, and they'll have to make some decisions. So the entire federal budget, is huge. Foreign assistance is 1%, and it's everything from essentially we have weapon sales to other countries to things like this that we're fighting disease. So those are the choices that the Appropriations Committee is going to have to make, and they're going to have to decide. Okay, is this the year that we do a contract with with Pakistan and Afghanistan, or do we want to spend more on global health? And so it is a finite choice for sure. But I don't recommend getting into it. And you may get somebody that says, okay, well, what would you like me to cut? And I would just sort of defer that question and say, look, we think the Appropriations Committee is well suited to make that decision.
Great question. Thanks, Thomas. Do we have other questions? Martin, expert, and we got a question from Florida over here. Give it a second for a microphone to get your way. Surprisingly, it's
All right, I know this is really serious business, but do you have any do's and don'ts for social media? Any pointers, anything you would recommend to do or not to do?
I don't do social media, so I'll hand it to Wes.
Well, I should defer to Chelsea, but I'll take my best stab at it since I have the microphone. First of all, big do. Absolutely do social media. Highlight your
me.
meeting. Yeah. If you can. If you have a Twitter, if you have a Facebook, and you have the platform to thank the member of Congress in their office for seeing you, for hearing you, for being part of this conversation, absolutely do. And in fact, your talking points even have suggested language at the very bottom for that exactly. You'd be surprised. Even if you meet with a staffer, you often get a retweet from the office, and that really puts them on at least a social public record that they do support our issue, or that they're at least supportive of our organization. So definitely do. And also, as far as photos, if you're in the meeting at the very end, one of the best asks that we can do is taking a photo in front of the office. The staffers love it because it kind of clears the conference room for the next meeting, but also, it gives us a great photo in front of the name plaque, in front of the flags that really show not only how big the group is and how supportive we are. I mean, Florida, you guys are great, but also that the congressman's office heard us there.
No, I think that's exactly right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good question. And as Edward said, share your photo and your messaging on Attendify. We can help, highlight that message too from the Nothing But Nets official account. Big thumbs up.
Tag Nothing But Nets as well, so we can reshare it.
Perfect. Other questions? I think we have time for maybe one more.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you guys see me crisscrossing you tomorrow, because you guys recognize me as your trusty photographer here, I'm okay. Grab me if I don't notice you, and let's get a picture of you guys with the dome up behind you, or some really cool looking Washington DC iconography. Because sometimes I'm running from one side to the other, but if you see me coming towards you and I don't see your t-shirts, say, hey, let's get a picture. I will say the same thing to you, so just go, big old smile, bam, let's do it. Because those pictures of you guys being engaged are really, really good at recruiting members of you guys to be here next year.
Also makes a pretty good profile picture. Just saying.
That's right. For those people that use social media.
Martin, I swear, you have a secret Facebook. I know it. Okay, well, if we don't have any last questions, and this is last pan for takers, let's introduce our fantastic Hill leads. Right here, Martin. Boom.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody, thank Martin for his time. He's great.